Welcome to Caribou Country Lifestyle. My name is Cheryl. Today I'm going to be making some elderberry syrup. Elderberry syrup is quite beneficial with having elderberries, lots of antioxidants in the elderberries. I also use rose hips. These elderberries that I'm using in this recipe are the elderberries that I picked from my elderberry bush out in my garden. And then I dehydrated them, and I did a video about dehydrating my elderberries. I was saying that I was going to be making some elderberry syrup. I've already made one batch of elderberry syrup. I didn't quite have enough honey or ginger to make two batches out of it. So I've made one batch so far. I like to make it and give it as gifts. I will get jars like this from the dollar store. This is the elderberry syrup that I made, and it's quite a bit smaller of a jar or bottle, and then again quite a bit smaller than this one. I have a labeler, and I do up the labels and put them on the bottle, and I give this as Christmas gifts this year. So I'm doing up another batch because I'm going to be giving some of it away to my sister-in-law and to my friend. They both really enjoy taking the elderberry syrup. It's really good for in the winter months. Sometimes you might end up with a bit of a scratchy throat. There is an organic honey that I add to the recipe too, so that is nice with that elderberry juice and the rose hips, that you have that honey and that kind of coats your throat, and it's actually very good tasting too. So let's get started. I just have a stainless steel pot. I put 3.5 cups of water. And this is just for one batch. And then I have 3/4 of a cup, and these are the elderberries that I got off my bush. And this is all I have left. I barely had enough for another 3/4 of a cup to be able to make this batch. So we add those in. Then I have 1/2 cup of dried rose hips. These rose hips I have purchased a couple of years ago from Amazon. So we'll add that. And then these are whole cloves. I just put a small handful of these into the recipe. Put those in. 2 cinnamon sticks. And then I'm going to put a couple of tablespoons of grated ginger. Now I bought this in the store, the jar. I just find that when I buy fresh ginger, it dries up and I don't get to using it in time. So I have just started buying it this way. Just turn my burner on. I have it on medium, and I want to get it to a boil. Once I get it to a boil, then I'm going to turn it on low and let that simmer. So there we have everything in the pot, and we'll just bring that to a boil. These are the rose hips that I got. I got these on Amazon. It says chef inspired. This was 1 pound, and they have them vacuum packed into these bags here. So it's vacuum packed. You get 2 of these. So I've opened the one, and then I have this one still. I do have rose hips in my yard at the front of the house, and there's actually rose hips all over this area. I haven't collected any to dehydrate myself, but at this point I don't really need any as of yet. But I think if I make a couple more batches and keep doing this elderberry syrup, I'm definitely going to need more. But that is it for my elderberries until next year. So this, I don't plan on buying any more dried elderberries. I have gotten dried elderberries on Amazon, and I've also gotten them at our local health food store downtown. They're quite expensive. The dehydrated elderberries work best for this elderberry syrup. Okay, I've got this coming to a boil now, and I'm going to turn this down to simmer. Turn that down on low, and then I want to simmer it covered for 45 minutes. And then once it has simmered for 45 minutes, so while we're waiting, I'm going to just take you around and show you some of my Christmas decorations that I have set up. This is one of my favorites. So I have these little village houses. Some of these I have purchased myself, and some of them I got from my mom. I kind of inherited them. I also like these LED Christmas trees that the lights change colors. I really like that. That I think I got from Avon when I used to sell Avon back in the day. And then our Christmas tree is all decorated too. No presents under this Christmas tree. This one I really like is we have the fireplace, and it does work, but because we've attached our TV to the fireplace, we don't like to use it. So this is a Christmas ball that changes. There's like 3 or 4 different modes of how you want your lights to flash, and I just put it on this quick one because it reminds me of having a fire in there. I also have this that I got from my parents. They had received this as a Christmas gift from my brother. Then I really like this little truck, and those lights on the tree light up, and you just flip the switch to turn it on and off. Yeah, so those are some things that I like putting up, and I have them up every year. Usually I have them in the exact same spot. That's what I really enjoy seeing. I turn them on when I'm home. I always have them going all the time. Oh, I can smell that elderberry and cinnamon and rose hips simmering on the stove. It's just such a wonderful scent. So we will come back when that is done simmering. So there it is. The cinnamon sticks have expanded quite a bit. That usually happens when I've had them simmering. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the elderberries and I'm going to push it up against the side of the pot and squeeze that juice out of the berries. And then that just is going to get all of that juicy goodness out of those elderberries. And it's fairly easy to drag it up to the side and express that juice out. Oh, it smells so good. My husband actually said he was having a scratchy throat this morning. And I said, "Do you want to take some elderberry syrup?" And he's like, "Sure, why not?" So I usually am the one that takes the elderberry syrup the most. And you don't even need to have a scratchy throat to take that syrup. You could take this just as a precautionary measure. You could have a tablespoon of this every day throughout the winter months, and that would be totally fine. You can have multiple tablespoons throughout the day, And it is not going to hurt you at all. Everything that is in here is all natural. Now that I've expressed that juice out of those berries, I have my 4-cup measuring cup. This makes 3 cups in total. The juice that we get from out of the pot, you have about 2 cups of juice. Now we'll pour this through this sieve. Just want to make sure I don't get any of it back into the juice. So I'm just going to push this off to the side. And then I'll add the rest of this. And then you can even just push, apply just a little bit of pressure to the berries and the rose hips, just to expel more of the liquid into my measuring cup. See how dark and rich that juice is? So I'm just going to let this drain and get all of the juice out of it. I mean, I'm already sitting at just over 2 cups of juice, but I also need to let this cool a little bit, because then I'm going to be adding a cup of honey, and I just buy an organic honey from the store, and I just will put that into a measuring cup. Once this is about lukewarm, it's too hot right now, but once it's lukewarm, I will add the honey in there. Okay, my syrup has, or the juice, it's not syrup yet, the juice has cooled off enough that we can add the syrup to it. Add a little bit of that organic honey in another bottle, but definitely wasn't going to be enough. So we're going to do a cup. Okay, so there's a cup. I'm going to add it in to our syrup, our juice. Keep calling it syrup. It's almost there. It's almost syrup. We are so close. Okay, now we're just going to mix that in really good. So now we're sitting at 3.5 cups. Yeah, this is just like lukewarm, just the right temperature. And I like using these bottles with these little clamp down lids. They work really good for this. Okay, I think that's good. It's good and mixed in. We'll take a funnel. Fill this one up first. And then we'll put the rest in this one. I don't think I'll get the bottle right full, but it's going to be good. This bottle definitely is bigger than this one, so it pretty much is the same amount in each bottle. Put the lid on, clamp that down, this lid on, clamp that one down, and then this one already has a homemade label on it, so I'm going to print a label for this bottle. Now the trick to this is you don't want to put it in the fridge and then try to put labels on, because that's what I did with my last batch that I just made a week ago. And I was having a really hard time getting the label to stick to the bottle once it was cool. And I already have this label into this labeler, so I just have to push print. Push the cut, and there we have it, elderberry syrup. So what I do is I take my scissors and I cut right where it's the elderberry and the syrup is, and then I kind of trim this side so it looks even, and then I just peel the back off. Try to have it so it's straight. So there's the one part. And try and have that so it's fairly centered, and there we have elderberry syrup. And then I'll just put this into the fridge. I'm just going to get my elderberry syrup that I have made in the fridge, and we're going to try some. This elderberry syrup will store for 6 months in your fridge. Mine is thicker because once you put it in the fridge, it thickens up with that honey. So mine is thicker. My husband had some this morning. I like to do this over the sink, but I'm going to take a chance that it will be okay. Just as good as the last time I took it, which was I ended up having a scratchy throat, and I took some elderberry syrup, and I think I had a scratchy throat for about 3 days, and that's really all that came from it. Scratchy throat, dry cough, did not go into my sinuses. I wasn't blowing my nose a bunch. It was just directed clearly just in my throat. So another good reason for you to take this, but like I say, you can take this every day just as a precaution, but everything that is in here is very good for you. It shouldn't make you sick, that's for sure. When I was using up the last of my other honey, it actually had crystallized. And if you do run into that, what you can do is you can put this bottle into some really warm water in a pot or a tall bowl, anything, and just put it in there, and that will decrystallize that honey, and then it will liquefy it back again. And even if it does have some crystals in the honey, when you put it into your warm juice, those crystals will liquefy and break down, and it will be totally fine, and your honey is fine to use even if it has crystallized. I've used the honey tons and it's never been an issue. So I'm glad you were able to join us for this video. Elderberry syrup, fairly easy to make. You just gotta source out your ingredients for it, mostly for the elderberries, the dried elderberries, and the dried rose hips are probably where you'll have to source those out, unless you know somebody that collects that and dehydrates them. Then you might be lucky enough to get them from a friend or somebody that you might work with that does that type of thing. But definitely check it out. So thanks for joining me, and we'll talk again soon. Bye for now.